Welcome to another fantastic edition of the Cybersecurity Matters podcast. Also, the one day a week that I managed to get something other than sweats on to as pants, but then enough about my lovely issues of the week. Join me as always is my amazing co-host, Christian Redshaw. Christian, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Dominic, and I do have dress pants on, but I can't say that I have dress shoes on.
The joys of and the magic of the cameras. It's nice to hide what we don't have to show.
The magic of TV.
The magic of TV, that's right, or the magic of audio if you're just listening to us today. Christian, who are we bringing onto the show today?
All right, so we have the Chief Information Security Officer of LifeLabs, which is a healthcare service provider, and his name is Mike Melo. So he's going to be talking to us all about cybersecurity, and hopefully we can dig into healthcare, doctor's office, dentist's office, and what your doctors are doing with your private information.
Absolutely. I think this will be a fantastic conversation. Plus, that's a super cool name. I'm expecting him to be a very chill fellow. So let's take a pause here.
It might run in his family.
Yeah. Who knows? Take a pause here. We'll bring Mike on shortly.
Sounds good. Let's do it. Mike Melo, welcome to Cybersecurity Matters.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
All the way from Toronto, Ontario, Canada. It's good to have you on the show today. So you are the CISO of LifeLabs, which is in the healthcare industry. And I wanted to just ask you, generally speaking, about healthcare, because we're all entrusting our information to doctors and dentists. And I just wondered, what is the state of affairs in the industry in general?
Yeah, great question. So I'd say for the past year, there's been this state of flux with how healthcare has been operating during COVID. It's obviously been challenging for everybody, but especially in the healthcare industry, and just figuring out, what's the best way that we can service our customers, and working with our government partners on, COVID testing and all of these regulatory protections that we have to put in place when it comes to privacy and security of our customers' data. So now more than ever, as we transition and adopt more digital protection or digital offerings, it's now more important than ever that we are protecting our customer information from all the various types of attacks and threats that we face today. And it's pretty interesting how quickly and rapidly this has come on set for organizations to ultimately be as agile as they can, and sometimes pivot in their security strategy or even their business strategy to allow for continued operations.
Yeah, I mean, I think about, my own dentist and my own doctor, and I just wonder, the state of those kind of organizations across the board. I mean, my honest opinion is they're being targeted, but it's not necessarily newsworthy when there is a cyber attack on like a local doctor's office or a local dental office. I think that they need cybersecurity, but I don't know that there's an appetite for it. Would you tend to agree with that in general?
I'd say that, for some of the smaller businesses out there, like a local dentist office, cybersecurity might not be the highest priority on their objectives right now. But I think that a lot of people are becoming more and more aware that this is a mainstream problem at all levels of business. It's not just a large organization, enterprise type discussion. This has to be a concern for even the smallest of businesses, right? Especially in the healthcare space, with the access and confidence of their customers to store their health records. Yes. It needs to be taken seriously in discussions. And, I'd say in the SMB market, it is challenging to find and understand how do you fit cybersecurity into your daily practice when it maybe hasn't been a a thought in the past of this is an overhead. This is something that I need to integrate into my daily operations.
Yeah, and something along that same vein, Mike. And first off, I love your beard, by the way. I recently shaved my 6 months worth of beard off, and I miss it immensely. So I'm growing it back. But you're among friends here with your fellow bearded brothers. But the thing that I find really fascinating / worrisome / annoying with many of these, again, in this small mid-sized business space, I mean, healthcare sector and other sectors as well, is that we still see a lot of myths or misperceptions that continue. Things such as, we have an IT service provider. If we get breached, it's on them. Or we have cyber insurance. We have nothing to worry about. And whether that be a physician who owns a small doctor's office, or whether that be a small manufacturing firm, you still have these executives who are basically pushing that risk elsewhere. What do we do to sort of push past these misperceptions? Or is it mainly we have to play this reactive game as more and more organizations get hit, they become wiser? Well, I'm just curious to your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think it's a constant cat and mouse game, right? It's always been a common perception for organizations to think of security as an afterthought or trying to address it through insurance, right? So it's never been a proactive approach in securing your organization. It's always been, well, we seem to be fine now. We're not a target, or we're not big enough to be targeted by threat actors, right? But I'd say that that is a false understanding of what security is and the threats out there, right? Everybody's a target. It's just how big of a target are you is the different question, right? So when it comes down to it really is risk, likelihood, impact, and really being practical. I'd say that there's a level of security that everybody needs at an organization, and there's no two alike security programs. It's very unique. I'd say that the way to really get past this is, business owners and leaders need to really understand what is their threat surface, right? What applies to them, right? Because there's a lot of material out there, a lot of great material, a lot of amazing companies who will provide you with security recommendations. However, it needs to be purpose fit for your company. And I'd say that, if you engage in, maybe something like an advisory service, or like a VCSO can come in and understand what it is that you are doing, what you're trying to accomplish, and understand what kind of level of risk tolerance that your organization might have, and really set out and lay the ground on what these common misperceptions are. So as you mentioned, a lot of people think I have an IT service provider. It's good. The fact is, most IT companies do not have any cybersecurity experience, right? Or even managed service in that space, right? There needs to be a cybersecurity program there. And it's one of the common challenges with cybersecurity is separating cybersecurity from IT as a function, right? Yes. It ultimately needs to start being perceived more as a business risk, an enablement of the business, and really, how do we allow cybersecurity to make the company flourish and seize new opportunities, right? Because it's becoming more mainstream that organizations want to understand your program when it comes to cybersecurity, and sometimes business deals are on the line. And if you don't have a solid cybersecurity program or one in existence, you're going to lose out on these business deals and opportunities. And we've seen this in LifeLabs. That's the reason why we ultimately put so much time and effort and have tremendous support from our executive and board around our cybersecurity program, is because it's fast moving in healthcare right now. You need to be agile, and you need to ultimately be trusted by your business partners and also your customers with the data you hold.
Well, it sounds like you're doing a great job at LifeLabs there. And I just wanted to talk about taking a strategic approach to cybersecurity and tying that to business outcomes. So tying the cybersecurity program that you're building in an organization to the actual business or the organization. Can you just, for the sake of us and for our audience as well, talk about, how to approach that? where do you start with cybersecurity? And I mean, I think where you're going is taking the strategic outcomes and the mission and the vision of the organization, and then making decisions based on that. But tell us how you would approach it.
Yeah, I'd say that, where I like to start for security is really comes down to culture and the people in your organization. So, there's this ideology in the security industry that people are the weakest link. And I think it's a wrong statement. I think that, that condones this punitive mentality of security and that people need to be doing better. Well, the thing is, we've invested so much time, research, money in securing technology that we've done very little to secure people. And the threat actors know this. People are the number one targeted attack vector. We see this through business compromise and phishing type attacks. And, that's only just one way, right? If we look at what's happening right now with COVID and companies adopting to this new remote workforce, if you have a security awareness program, most are likely to only have like a compliance-based program. So, here's some material, here's a video, watch this every year, and we've checked the box, right? I think we need to be doing a lot more than that. And culture not only relates to, what we're doing from an educational perspective, but also the culture from the executive team and understanding why security has to fit in to the business enablement and be purpose fit for your company, right? So if we look at things like these new business opportunities, how is your security company or your security program in the organization ultimately allowing your business to ascertain this new business, right? And that usually is done through third party or supply chain type questionnaires. And this is really where awareness, even at the executive level, has to be well perceived. So we actually instantiated a cyber risk governance committee for all of our executive leadership team that I co-chair with our CEO, and we meet with them every month. So this was a great way for us to really take a top-down approach and educate all of our executive leadership team on, what the security program is doing, how it is benefiting them, and direct and indirect impacts to their lines of business. So I first and foremost always believe in culture and people, and I think we just need to, work on making our people our greatest defense.
Mike, just quickly in response to that, before I pass that over to Dominic, what a fantastic high bar to set. To co-chair a meeting with your CEO. How many other organizations can their CEOs right at the top level of the organization can say they've got cybersecurity sitting at the leadership table, influencing decisions in the direction of the organization. So I want to applaud you for that and set that as an example for those that are watching about how it should be done.
Absolutely, and I think, again, the thing which, to Christian's point there, about saying I'd say a golden standard for ultimately how, even for us as security practitioners, we like to see our clients be able to strive to that level of commitment when it comes to cybersecurity. One of the things which I wanted to ask you a bit more about was about that sort of concept of losing out on business deals or losing business partners by not investing in cybersecurity. I think one of the reasons why cybersecurity often gets ignored by small and mid-sized businesses is that, again, they perceive that the threats, so whether that be ransomware or what have you, won't affect them. But now, like you were mentioning, and I think especially what we've seen with what happened with the SolarWinds incident, now there's increased pressure on vendor risk management, supply chain risk management. And if you are an organization, especially like a B2B organization, and you're trying to sell to larger organizations, they're clamping down on that type of supply chain risk. So as a small company, let's say you're a health tech company or a fintech company, and you're trying to sell your service or platform to these very regulated spaces, I just want, if you could just sort of recap and maybe expand on how it's so much of a competitive advantage to actually be investing in cybersecurity now, because otherwise, if not even just from a basic table stakes perspective. So do you see us going more in that direction where that business reason or reasons which are impacting the underlying bottom line becoming a key reason why you should invest in cybersecurity. It's no longer just to protect against those unknown threats.
Yeah, it's a great question, and I'd say that those who are in the heavily regulated spaces, so companies who have relationships with banks and even in healthcare, the smaller size businesses have always kind of been under this level of scrutiny. But I'd say that with the pervasiveness of these attacks, it's now trickling to all industry, right? And this is where it's not so much the direct relationships, it's also the indirect. So if an organization has a relationship with the bank, we actually saw this in the States, the AMCA breach, where you had like LabCorp and Quest. They had a collection agency, and that agency was then breached. And then there was a fallout because there was ultimately the ownership or the onus of the responsibility of that protection falls on the company who has outsourced this or has partnered with somebody else. So there is this whole chain of security that needs to be addressed when, you're looking at business relationships, and people are now starting to look at the second and third and fourth link in the chain to identify and understand, well, what is my actual risk exposure? And, this company may be doing a fantastic job with its security, but if it outsources or leverages somebody else's new product or platform, does that now change the actual security capabilities of that information, right? So it's becoming more mainstream now than ever. And you're starting to see people actually, and organizations actually make decisions based on cybersecurity capabilities. And it's only going to continue.
That's such an impactful insight there, Mike. That's fantastic. Christian, do you have another question?
Yeah, I think I have one last question for you, Mike. So dialing it down into a super, super basic level here for those that maybe those organizations and business leaders that don't really understand what cyber threats really are. We're living in an evolving digital world now. So what we're talking about here, the subject of it is we have a reliance on technology more than ever to run our organizations. The assets that we're protecting is information, it's communication, it's this intangible thing that has value. And then there's the evolving threats around that are getting more and more sophisticated as time goes on, naturally. Can you just talk about that a little bit and talk about, what is it that we're protecting? What is the threat against it? Just lower the ramp a little bit for just the intro level, if you could.
Yeah, I'd say that, to really have a good stance against the threats that we're facing today, it's, one thing that you really need to be mindful of is what are the threats specific to your organization. So, it can be a very scary world out there hearing about, the SolarWinds breaches and all these big organizations and, nation state attackers. And, in the SMB market, I'd say, you're likely not to be the biggest target for a nation state, right? However, we're starting to see a lot of net new companies, especially in the biotech industry, in the healthcare industry, with all of this COVID and trying to be innovative, that they are potential targets because of the data they hold. And right, I think as you said, it's important to understand that the asset in which you're protecting is generally your information, whether that be somebody else's information, whether it be PI or IP of your own company. And I think when an organization starts to think about, how do we protect our systems? How do we protect our programs? I think you really just need to keep it simple, right? The one killer to security is always complexity. And I like to take a very simplistic approach in understanding, what's and how to be practical, right? So what is the true problem you're trying to solve here? And, if you look at the SMB market, ransomware is like the number one threat. And, there's some practical ways in how you can address that through maybe centralization of your data. So maybe that's, you have OneDrive or you have Google Drive for your company, and now all of your data is being stored and secured in one location rather than being sprawled out through your entire organization. And, and then you have a smaller footprint, right? So if you're trying to secure your whole company, all 100% of it equally, you're losing your focus. You're spending too much money, and you're not investing smartly where it needs to be. Whereas if you reduce that to, let's say, 20%, right, and all your critical information is in like the centralized type location, then you have a more narrow focus. You have a better chance at creating real defenses that are going to help your company protect against these different types of attacks. So again, I'd say keep it simple. Having a good cyber hygiene plan is key. So there's obviously some foundational elements like patching all of your systems. Like I can't stress that enough. Patching is so important. It can be very easy to do. It can be very difficult to do. But if you allow it to go without patching, it's going to become more and more challenging. And then I'd say, implementing MFA wherever you can, especially on administrative type accounts, and again, the culture and security awareness in your program. Your people are being attacked every day. They are the attack vector. So if you can help them understand not only security as it fits to their work purpose, but also security as it relates to work from home scenarios now, right? Mm-hmm. Storing your assets away in a locked drawer, or not allowing family members to leverage your work computer for personal needs and stuff like that. These are just simple things that can really make a difference.
That's absolutely amazing insight, and we're so grateful to you, Mike, for sharing such practical and pragmatic guidance and actionable advice for our listeners and viewers. And Christian and I are very, very appreciative of you taking time of your hectic schedule to join us today. Thank you again so much.
Thank you, Mike.
Oh, thanks for having me. I had fun being here, had fun talking. So, definitely appreciate you inviting me here.
Absolutely. Awesome. Keep growing that beard. You look fantastic, my friend.
Oh, will do.
Christian and I will be right back to wrap up today's show. Christian, I think you and I can both safely say that was a really, really incredible conversation with Mike. Being able to get a chief information security officer of a very high-profile healthcare company in Canada here was very much an honor, I think, to have him on the show. Plus, his beard was quite fantastic. I give him a full grade on that. He brought his A game all around. I'm really interested to know what were one or two of your key takeaways from his thoughts.
Well, I told Mike off camera after the episode that I actually had a beard that looked similar to his up until yesterday. It was the COVID growth beard. But because of the gray, I look a bit like Santa Claus. So I had to bring it down and at least look somewhat professional. But, Mike's an all around really great guy, getting to know him a little bit. And I really think that he does such a good job of being in touch with the real threats to small and medium-sized organizations, and organizations really of all sizes. The thing that stood out to me was he mentioned, it's often said that people are the biggest threat. And, there's definitely serious truth to that statement. But we can attribute that also to the cause, which is that they've been underinvested in. There's been a lot of spend on technology, but not a lot of investment in people. So it's not necessarily those individuals' fault, but maybe a cultural issue there that we need to address.
Absolutely. I think, the thing I really like what Mike was saying as well was that the need to be able to boil this down, bring this down to a risk equation. If you want a seat next to the CEO or the business owner, especially at a smaller mid-sized business, you need to equate this with risk. What does this mean in terms of lost business? What does this mean if you don't invest in cybersecurity, that you could lose out on potential business or lose out on potential partnerships or what have you? So I really appreciate how Mike boiled that down to the fact that at the end of the day, you need to communicate in risk. And I think that was a very powerful takeaway.
Completely agree.
And as always, we always want to extend a special thanks to our loyal viewers and listeners for taking time out of their busy day or week to spend some time with us. Please be sure to check out previous episodes as well as other podcasts under the Conversations That Matter banner. You can see those on the Conversations That Matter YouTube page. As always, be well, be safe, be awesome, and we'll catch you next time on the Cybersecurity Matters podcast.